Hi, I'm Piyush Nanda. I am a second year PhD student in the Biological and Biomedical Sciences program of Harvard Medical School. And
Mhm,
I'm doing my PhD in Andrews Murray Lab, which is
mhm,
situated in like the Molecular and Cellular Biology Department of Harvard University.
mhm,
And I work on like evolution, like using yeast as a model system. So the questions that I'm trying to answer is how did multicellularity evolve? And like other question is like how do metabolic specialization occur in microbes?
mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So I usually start with this in the sense that what was your undergrad research experience or other relevant experience that led up to the point where you decided that you want to apply for grad school?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I most of my focus in undergrad was on like engineering side of biology, on like engineering microbes to produce like biofuels and chemicals and stuff like that.
Mhm,
But I guess like so I did my first internship at Michigan State University. It was a
mhm,
place like Great Lakes Bioenergy Research Center, and there I worked with like more like genetic engineering stuff to like produce biofuel and all. But
mhm,
at that point I somehow realized maybe I need to understand more about like systems biology, which is like understanding biological systems at a more broader view.
mhm,
And that's why I was looking for labs, and I also applied for this thing known as Honda Yes program,
mhm,
and I got through it, which allowed me to go to like University of Tokyo. So I
mhm,
worked in like developing technologies how to understand protein interaction networks and like more like network properties of cells.
mhm,
And then after that I thought like maybe I should get more trained on like the engineering and the synthetic biology side. So that's why I went like through Corona scholarship to Harvard University.
mhm,
I work with Johan Paulson, who does, so that's where like drastic change happened in the way I was doing work, because now I was also a part into like theoretical sciences and like
mhm,
doing models and like understanding biology from a more theoretical perspective. And that's what continued. And after that I did most of my undergrad work, which was half theoretical, half experimental. And I wanted to work in like where we are trying to do like evolution and stuff to understand biological systems. And I thought like Harvard is a great place. I applied to
mhm,
Harvard and few other schools, and I was selected.
mhm,
And yeah, so that is where I was like very curious about like how do cells evolve new functions, how they take decision based on their environmental cues and all. And I rotated in like two labs. One of them was Mike Springer, and then it was Andrew Murray. And then I just joined the lab recently. So that has been mostly my journey. I mean, so it has mostly started with like engineering sciences, but now I'm more into like basic and fundamental sciences, which
mhm.
I think is like pretty cool because I can
Yeah.
apply like engineering ideas into basic science. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. So once you decided that you wanted to apply for grad school, like how did you go about deciding which research groups you want to apply to or which universities you want
Right.
to?
Yeah. So here there are like three levels of complication. The first is which university to apply. The second is what research groups to look for.
Mhm,
And the third is what programs to apply for. And I guess there are like different levels of like complexities here. So the first is about like university. I mean, it really does not matter a lot, like if you are getting like a lab which works in like what you are interested in.
mhm,
But I mean, whenever people apply, I always suggest that apply to like 2 3 big schools, but then also apply to mid schools and then apply to some safe schools. But
mhm,
also make sure if you ultimately end up getting into a safe school, you find labs in which you are interested in. It's not
mhm,
that you will be like detested at that point and I'll be saying I
mhm.
don't want to do research anymore, I'll just do
Yeah.
anything. That is what hurts the most, because it's very unlikely that like most of the people will get into like top of the like tops like in their preferences. So that's why while you are making this list, it's also very important that you find labs in your safe schools which are also equally interesting to you,
Mhm,
right? So that is one thing. And the second like level of complexity is which research groups to apply for. This is my suggestion, and what I've learned by talking to different people is like just make sure you have like at least 2 to 3 people working in the same domain or same area you are interested in.
mhm,
Because most of the US grad school programs you have to do like 3 rotation, and the
mhm,
program often wants to ensure that you are at least able to do like 3 rotation in things you are interested in, right?
mhm.
So that is one thing. And I was interested in like evolution and stuff, and I found like there are like four
So
or five
just to
labs
like
here.
clarify, like rotation is you basically try out different labs for different previous.
Yeah. Right. Just to clarify, so basically, it depends on the program. So for NIH funded programs, you have like 3 rotations. You can do more. I have friends doing like 6 rotation. There's no harm if like until you find a good lab. That's the thing. But for some other programs, they just directly you have to like choose a professor and you have to get in. So if you get to do a rotation, it's really good because you can go through different mentoring styles. Then you can see like what fits you the best. But it's not like that of a big deal. Yeah, so like that's one thing to make sure is like at least you have like 3 or 4 labs in the same university or the same department you're applying to. And then the third is the most important. I mean, all these things are fine, these are fancy, but the third most important thing is which programs to apply for. So this is how it, so if this like this interview is mostly directed towards like Indian students, then what I would say is like there are different cutoffs for the number of students that each program is going to take in. So as far as I've understand, like NIH has sort of like a mandate that will not take more than 10% international students, which means that a program, and that's international students, so they can take people from elsewhere apart from India, right? So normally if you are applying to specific programs, so I will use this term specific and like general programs. So by specific, I mean if you're applying to like a bioinformatics program, you're applying to like a genomics or bioinformatics program, that's a specific program. But what I applied to, it was like the BBS, that was like biological and biomedical sciences. That's a more general program, or what they technically call it as like an umbrella program. So here you like there is less amount of competition because they take a lot of people, they have a lot of money, and of course it's like overall it's competitive. But if an Indian student is trying to get into a program, I guess big programs are easier because my program has like almost 40 or 50 students, and they take like 10% international student, which like counts to like some 4 or 5 international student. And then it's very likely that a student applying from India will get in, right? But like programs which are more specific, like genomics or bioinformatics, or if you apply for something like quantum physics or something like that, those are like super specific. So there they take hardly like 9, 10 students or maybe 20. And like there they will most likely, and if it's like NSF funded, then maybe they will take like more like international student. But if you are applying to specific biological sciences program, like as I mentioned, bioinformatics or like systems biology or like neuroscience or like some biophysics or something like that, the chances actually reduce a lot. So if you are interested in something specific and you find that lab is also under some general program, do apply for the general program. It just makes like the whole journey easier, right? And yeah, so I have like I have anecdotes from some of my close friends who applied for the specific programs and did not get in, that I later got to know it was just like a bar on the number of international students. So that is like, these are like 3 levels of complication. That's why it's really good to start looking for these things earlier in your process of application, because it's not just always about like appearing for GRE or like TOEFL or like SOP. A more important thing is to actually figuring out where to apply, because we have this temptation to of course apply for like Stanford, MIT or Harvard. Of course you should apply, but like apart from that, you should also look for what departments, what program, and how easy it's to get into a program. And what I have really found useful is actually to use LinkedIn. I mean, if you are trying to apply for like a program like MCO or like what's there in Harvard, you can just look for like people who are in MCO program at Harvard. And if you see like a lot of international students in like later years, in like the 4th or 5th year, you know that this program actually accepts students internationally in a good number. So I guess these are all these things that, I mean, if it's also directed towards people who are applying this year, I guess there's still time. It's just October. You can plan out all these things. Yeah.
That's super. It's a unique information that would be super helpful, I guess, for those who are listening. So also, I guess this is not very relevant for you, but at any point of time did you have to decide between like research or job?
I mean, at some point in my second year of undergraduate, I was more tempted towards like industry, and because I thought that that is more connected to the world, like I will do something which I know is like happening. And this is what my friends and I like who are in like companies in Bangalore and all, and I debate that. They say that, oh, I'm doing more real things because I'm writing this code, it's really going to a bank who's doing something. And I say that, oh, my bets are more riskier, I am doing something which might not really show relevance now, but it can be really big if it turns out to be true. So it's about like what you actually want. See, there are trade-offs here. I mean, if you're really intrigued by science and you think that it's like a lot to take in, I mean, research is going to be like very hectic, you have to like work beyond hours. It is actually not like that. You can actually have a pretty chill life while doing research. So I mean, I had this dilemma, but once I did my internships abroad and I got to know people, I thought that you can still be like doing a lot of science while enjoying your life. So I guess in that terms, if someone is like really interested in science, they should probably go for it. I mean, it's not that bad decision. I mean, I never regretted it. I really enjoyed doing like research. That's why, I mean, at some point I was very sure that I want to do a PhD.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on like on a related note, so how has your first year experience been so far as a grad student at Harvard?
Oh, I mean, like as far as you would have understood, I was there back in India for 1 year because due to COVID and all.
Okay.
So I was not able to move to the US. So I moved to the US just like in June. And after that, it has been great. I mean, I got like a very nice lab. Like they are like really nice people, and I've been doing like very good work. So my first year was pretty hectic, I would say, because I had to take like a lot of classes. I mean, this is the thing with NIH funded program that you have to do like a lot of classes. They want to make sure that you are well trained in like each and every sections of biology. So I don't know if you believe in me or not, but I had to do like classes on like pathophysiology where they will teach you how to interpret like ECG reports and like medical reports and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I mean, it was quite hectic, and particularly because it was on Zoom, I was back there in India. That's why it was pretty hectic. And I also had to do my rotations. The first rotation was like virtual. I just did like computational biology there. But like now that I'm in my second year and like this semester is going to end, I was also like a teaching fellow for one of the undergrad courses, which was amazing. I mean, like I really enjoyed a lot, and that's why there's a lot of fun there in grad school. I mean, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So yeah, so once you decided which research groups and universities you wanted to apply for, so what was your timeline of preparing for various stuffs like your statement of purpose or your asking for recommendations, GRE, etc.?
Right. So I mostly started like looking for all these things somewhere around like the beginning of October, I guess. And I mostly started making like a list of different programs and like different labs and stuff like that. And I had to accordingly tailor my SOP, because that is also a very important thing, that you actually tailor your SOP based on what programs you are applying to. So I mostly likely started these things around November. I applied for like GRE, but I most of the programs I applied for didn't like ask for GRE, but I still applied for as like a safety valve. And I applied it for somewhere in the mid of October, I guess. And same goes for the TOEFL. It was like in a week like gap I applied for both of them. And I mostly focused in like on like SOP, because here's one thing. Maybe you will bring up another question on SOP, but yeah, then I can just say it then. But like this was the timeline, and most of my programs had like a deadline of like first week of December, I guess. So yeah.
Okay, nice. So yeah, as you mentioned about SOP, so do you have any specific advice regarding what one should do versus what one should avoid in one's SOP?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So whatever I'm going to say, I've actually discussed these things with like a lot of professors who actually go through applications here.
Wow, okay.
And this is my conclusion. So one of the thing is like a lot of people apply for PhD programs, right? And even if your SOP is like really good, what really matters in SOP is the first paragraph should be really catchy. It should hook the person into like reading it, because they are really, I mean, they release the results in a very like narrowed timeline. So they are going through the application super fast. So the first rule is your first few lines of your SOP should be super unique. And that's what they spend some artistic time in doing that. I mean, because most people in programs like biological sciences write, oh, my grandmother was sick and she had like Alzheimer's, so I want to change the world. So these are generic. So this is, of course, I mean, like they read like things like this in every other SOP most likely. So what different can you write there? I mean, it can be very simple. It can be as simple as I was in my seventh grade. My father showed me this small experiment and I was intrigued. That's how like I started reading more about science. It can be simple, but it needs to be a very personal and very natural. And that's what I guess like people look for. And that is about the first paragraph. This is how I explain it to people. So first paragraph should be more about like a very artistic description of how you started science and how did it end up in like that. Now it's the point like you started doing science, and the paragraph should end with, oh, now I'm in the mood of applying for this PhD program because I carried my enthusiasm through all the time. And then you start mentioning about the things that you did. So the way the SOP is mostly structured around after the first paragraph is what you did, what you want to do and why you want to do that. So
Mhm.
this is how I explain. So the first paragraph, like second paragraph, should be about like what skills did you gain through your internships or through your undergrad projects. So you can mention things like, and it should be really short. It should be really short because you have like a bar on the total amount of like words you can write, right?
Mhm.
So you have to basically like write it down in like maybe 200 words or something like that. Like what are the things that you did and like how you got intrigued into this particular field. And the third paragraph should be more technical. When I
Mhm.
say technical, you can literally put scientific references there. Okay,
Mhm.
you just write about like, oh, I'm interested in this specific part of like synthetic biology, I want to engineer cells to do this, and
Mhm.
these are the people who have tried it in this way, I think that it can be also done in this way. And then it's also very much recommended that you mention the lab which like also does the same work in the same department. Oh,
Mhm.
and I think like these questions can be interested in this way. I have a right background because I was trained in like synthetic biology and also computational biology, so I can bring
Mhm.
the expertise from two fields together. And I
Mhm.
know this person in this department, I have been following his or her work from a long time, and I think
Mhm.
that this lab would be a good fit. But I'm also not limited to this particular lab. Then just mention something else, just mention a different lab, just try to mention 3 or 4 labs. I mean,
Mhm.
it's at some programs they do not like really recommend mentioning names there, because then it means that you already have something in your mind and there's no point of doing rotation because you can go and
Mhm.
just join some lab. But for programs which do not mention that, you can definitely write names. I mean, I wrote names of people in Harvard when I applied for Harvard. And then the last paragraph is also very much important. It might sound very boring and like, but like the last paragraph you should write about why are you specifically applying to that program and that department. And
Mhm.
there is where you should be mostly writing about that you really like the program because you went through the list of previous students, you saw like there was a good diversity of students or stuff like that.
Mhm.
You will also be taking classes. You are, so every program has a different website, right? And they
Mhm.
write a complete portfolio of the things they allow you to do. So I wrote all those things like this program, BBS program, where I got selected. I wrote that you allow for like internships in your fourth year, which is really interesting because I can go
Mhm.
to industry and work. And then I also wrote about like what are my future goals, that I want to do this. I will be really happy if I can spin off some company from my academic like research, which will
Mhm.
maintain like the right homeostasis between what I want to do and like how it can really be applied to the world and stuff like
Mhm.
that. So I guess that is how SOP is. But I guess what's the most important, like the most important set of paragraph, I guess, is like the second and the third, where you actually mention about science. And
Mhm.
that's what triggers most of people. I mean, some person who is working in a specific field that you're interested in, if he or she reads that SOP, then she'll be logged in there, and she
Mhm.
will then go through your CVs, she will go through your he or she will go through your recommendation letters and stuff. So I
Mhm.
guess SOP is one of the first things that they read, because then there's where they get to know you as a person. And
Mhm.
once they are interested, they will start looking into recommendation letters and stuff like that. And for there's another important thing that I also want to mention regarding letters of recommendation, that mostly it is that like labs in India at least, they will just ask you to write something and they'll just put a signature. Okay, so that's
Mhm.
how it like works in some of the like places in India. So
Mhm.
do make sure that your language that you are writing in LOR for your professor to just put a signature, it's not the same as SOP. Otherwise, it will feel as if you have written like the recommendation letter for yourself. So
Okay.
these are
Mhm.
like small details that you should be like aware about. But I guess apart from that, you should put like a lot of effort into SOP, because that is what actually defines your scientific goals, and
Mhm.
the programs are like generally intrigued by that. So
Mhm.
and like, and there's a different thing known as personal statement, in which is like more personalized. You might
Mhm.
not need to write like a lot about science and things you want to do, but
Mhm.
like it's helpful that if you mention like how you are curious about science, what you want to do, like what are the things in your field that triggers you, why are you triggered by that and stuff like
Mhm.
that.
So, like,
Yeah.
are personal statements asked in most biology programs?
I mean, the programs that I apply to, I guess they call it a statement of purpose. I mean, there are
Mhm.
some programs, maybe I don't remember exactly, who ask you for like personal statements, but mostly it's like statement of purpose.
Mhm.
And like statement of purpose, as far as the name speaks, it's more like technical. It's like what
Mhm.
you want to do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
personal statement, you write more of a personal story and skipping
Yeah,
the.
I mean, yeah. You if you mention about science, then it would be really nice, because then you actually take science into account into your personal life is like really great. But it need not be that technical. You need not like put like scientific references, citations and stuff like that. But in SOP, it's highly recommended you do that. Then it really shows that you have researched the field before like applying to that program.
So I think SOP is like compulsory for all programs, while personal statements,
Yeah.
like even I think I
Yeah.
faced for like 1 or 2 programs, but
Yeah.
it's quite rare, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, you mentioned something about letters of recommendations, like to making sure that it's not like you have not written yourself and it's not a copy of your SOP.
Yeah.
So when would you suggest that one should ask for their recommendations? Plus, who should they ask it from? Plus, do you have anything in mind regarding what a good recommendation is?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think like what I understood. So mostly people will ask you for like 3 letters of recommendation. You can also submit an additional one, but like it's mostly 3. That's like the minimum required. And it is generally suggested like one of them should be from your teacher. By the teacher, you mean who taught you in undergrad or something like that. And the 2 can be from people under whom you did some scientific research. Okay, so but what is really important that one of them should be from your teacher. It's really like appreciated if it should like it's from a teacher, because then what happens, they don't just know like your research part in which you go to lab, you work till like 3 a.m in the morning or whatever. They also know about how you are a student, how curious are you in the class, how good of a team player are you through assignments and stuff like that. So that's why I will highly recommend that one of the recommendation letter should come from one of your faculties who taught you in your university. And maybe 2 if in the rest 2, maybe one of them can be from your internship, like the one in which you feel like you have done like the most work, it was like the most fruitful. And maybe one from your undergrad institution if you have done like a bit of like research work there. Because the problem with internship is like they are generally like quite short, and like in a period of 2-3 months it's difficult to know like how a person does real science. I mean, you can definitely do a lot of things, but like it's difficult. So that's why if you have done like a bachelor's or like master's thesis project in your institute, and it was like a long term project, you spent like 2 years working on something, then like getting a recommendation letter from someone under whom you worked is like really useful. So if like broadly it's like 3 categories I mentioned: one from your teacher, the second from your undergrad advisor, and maybe the third one from one of the like good internships that you did. But you can definitely play around this. You can be a bit more flexible if you want. You can submit one. So if you think that okay, you did like an internship at Harvard, but you also did one at like University of Tokyo, both of them are amazing, then you can submit one additional recommendation letter. So no one is going to stop you for that. And regarding what to write, so as far as I understand, so it's more like the recommendation letter should not be mere a letter of appreciation, but it should be about critic. So I am really thankful because my undergrad supervisor, when he wrote like the recommendation letter, he not just mentioned about like all the good things that I did, but he also mentioned about like he wanted to do this thing, he tried it, but maybe in a better academic environment he could have done it better. And so it should basically create the vacuum of why you should be going to like the grad school. I mean, if he says that he was amazing back in India, then why are you should probably do your PhD there, right? So that's why it should create the vacuum that yeah, he tried to do all these things, but he could not because of course like there was not like this facility or that facility. He wanted to do this as a large scale and like not just like taking few genes, but like knocking out the whole library or something like that. And these are the things he could do in like big universities, and that's what exactly he wrote there. And I guess that was really successful, and that was also mentioned to one of my interviewers here at Harvard, that yeah, this was really important, because once he mentioned that he really wanted to do all these things, it really made like a neat statement there that yes, there's some point of taking this person in here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting insight. And uh, one thing that a lot of people ask is about the funding for these programs. Do you have any idea about, specific to life science, how the funding would work for different universities, either in US or Europe? Or...
Yeah. I think it's pretty much like in US, if you get into a program, it's the responsibility of the program or the faculty to make sure you are funded. And once you join a lab, you actually sign a form, like your faculty signs a form that, okay, like, so here's the thing. So for Indian student, there is no scholarship here. Okay, at least in life sciences. So if you are funded, you are either funded by the program or from some extramural funds of the university or something like that. But you are assured of the funding. So you did not worry about that. You are assured for the funding at least for 5 years. I know people who have stayed in labs for like 8 years and they were completely supported. They were also on F1 visa from India. So there is no issue. So for US, I don't think it's like much of a hassle. I guess if you are applying to like European universities, I guess it's more important there, because of course, like the university and professor can pay you once you get into like French universities or like German universities, but they also recommend you to apply for like DAD or like Chorpok or like a BIF and stuff like that. And those are pretty competitive. So, I mean, for them, you have to actually, for DAD, at least I know you have to write a proposal, a proper scientific proposal of what you want to do in your PhD and stuff like that. And same goes for UK. In UK, I think there are scholarships from India. Like one of my friends, she got into University of Oxford, and it was through a scholarship like Indira Gandhi Fellowship or something like that. So there are fellowship like that from like India. So that's pretty much the thing about like European and like like English universities. But in US, I'm pretty sure like you're very much assured of like the funding, so you should not worry. But you can definitely apply to different other things, like if you want to get like funding for doing some experiments. Like I think most of the university are pretty resourceful in that aspect. But for your stipend and all, you don't need to worry. I mean, you are always funded.
Okay, interesting. So another part of the application is the GRE scores and the TOEFL scores. So when should one start preparing for them? What resources would you suggest using?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. See, like as of now, like this year at least, as far as I knew from my juniors, like I don't think like many universities are even asking for like
Yeah.
GRE scores. I guess what, yeah, but it's so like that's the thing, right? So, but you have to apply for it, but
Yeah.
because you cannot resist, you have to. Like the best strategy would be to apply, not to
Yeah.
apply, right?
Yeah.
So that's why do apply for GRE, and it does not require that level of preparation, because as far as I understand, above a score it does not matter. If you are securing like 326 or 340, no one is going to throw you out of a PhD program because of that 14 marks difference. It's just a sigmoidal curve. I mean, at some after a threshold, it does not matter.
Yeah.
So I will say if you have securing more than 320 with like good marks, at least in the quant and like verbal, because I guess where people lose most of their mark is verbal. I mean, quant, I guess most of them will secure like full marks. So just do prepare for that. And it's also fun. I mean, like you will go to like you will learn like a lot of good words, how to form sentences, and that actually helps you during SOP preparation. I mean, that really helps during SOP preparation. And while it comes to the TOEFL or IELTS, I guess like people can mostly apply for like TOEFL. There are only specific programs at MIT, I guess, and some other university where they require like only IELTS score. So I mean, but that's like a different thing. So I think like I mean, it does not take like a lot to prepare, but it takes some amount of time. So just keep, I mean, I will suggest people to do it as early as possible, because you can spend more time into other important things.
Yeah.
But it's not like the most determining thing. If someone is securing like a 318 in like GRE, don't just like be heartbroken there. I mean, it's okay. I mean, it's just move on. That's not the most important thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what resources or any books or any links do you think help you?
I think for GRE at least they have a pretty much sorted syllabus in like GRE website. I guess they have like practice tests. I guess once you appear for like a couple of practice tests, and like they give you like one or two for free, I guess. I mean, you are pretty much sorted. I mean, I would not say that you have to take like a coaching, you have to like spend like thousands of rupees like preparing for that. I mean, what I'm trying to say, GRE is like the not the most important thing. So there are better things to focus on. So I mean, I'll just suggest people to do that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Also, as you suggested, like I think giving the free practice tests also acts kind of as a diagnostic for what one is weak at and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Another question that is very commonly asked is which part of their applications is more important, like if they have a bad grades, or whether it's their projects, or whether it is publications or their recommendations. So what's your take on which part of their application is more critical to their selection?
Okay. So I think the most important thing is sort of your, I mean, like it's different with different different programs, but I guess
Mm-hmm.
like LOR are sort of important because they are a validation to everything you write in. Let it be
Yeah.
your CV, let it be your SOP, or let it even be your grades. I mean, you can be like a 9.8 CGPA in your college, but then if your professor does not feel like you were enthusiastic enough, it just were like you were doing rote learning in the last day of the week and you just
Mm-hmm.
secured some marks. So I guess that's why letter of recommendation are like a direct communication between a professor to a professor. That's why they
Mm-hmm.
actually are really useful. I mean, then I would say SOP is also very important because then it makes like a stage for what you want to do. It really explains them you are interested and you want to do all these things. I mean, at least the third paragraph is really important because then they know that this person is really interested in science, is not just like applying just for like coming to the US or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess like grades, I mean, no matter how much we say, it is really important. I mean, I would suggest people to secure as much as possible, but then if you are in the last month while you're applying for your PhD, there is no point of like being worried, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what you can do better is to improve your SOP, maybe get do better research. And the thing that can also matter a lot is publication, but it's not the most important thing. So this is how it was told to me. So what publication actually show, if you are like a first author there, no matter how small the journal is, no matter even if it's published or not, it just
Mm-hmm.
shows that you have seen like science from the beginning to the end, how to develop a hypothesis and how to translate into like a manuscript, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have done something that you think can be written down and at least submitted it, let it be in like bioarchive or like Cornell archive, that's
Mm-hmm.
completely fine. It just shows a lot. I mean, it just shows that you have actually put effort in completing something. And submitting a paper is far greater than getting it published. I mean, if I say that you will get like a score of 10, if you just wrote that I'm writing some manuscript, then I will give you a score of 90 if you told me that it got submitted, and maybe 100 if it got published. So just know the scale. So if you think at some point, and these are the things people can start thinking when they are in their penultimate year, maybe at the beginning, if you have done something you think it can be written down into a manuscript or something like that, and at least submitted by the apply time you apply, I think that would be really helpful. It would just show that you are already prepared. You do not need to go through the process of like learning how to start science, how to end it. So that's why these things are useful. I mean, of course, many people will tell you that these are not useful, just like
Mm-hmm.
apply for it. But of course they are useful. I mean, I'm not saying that they are necessary, but they are just useful. And
Mm-hmm.
like if there is any possibility for that, do go for it. And if you have not done anything like that, then I guess SOP is your savior there, because then you can mention your ideas there and you can create a thing that I wanted to do this thing but I could not, but now I have gone through like different papers. I saw that this could be done in this way, and I think the PhD would be like a really great opportunity for me. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, overall, if you look at what I'm trying to say, you just have to create like a strong story there. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you integrate everything, your CGPA, your SOP, your like letters of recommendation, CV, it should just become a very good story, and the story should end with, I am really interested in science and I want to do all these things. You give me the opportunity to come to the US to this specific university so that I can do it. I mean, as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Uh, Another thing that I usually ask is during your various steps of applications, did you like consult with any faculty member or have any part of it reviewed? Uh, you already mentioned a lot of things that you discussed with various faculty members post application, and yeah, those are super helpful. But do you also have anything on uh,
Yeah, I
good
mean,
suggestion?
right. So I did not discuss it with faculties because if you ask them what should I do in my application, I mean, they are also under some like non-disclosure agreement, so they
Yeah.
cannot like disclose all the things, right? But I did talk with like people from my internship labs, saying that this is my SOP. Does it look good? Like, what are the
Mm-hmm.
suggestions you'll give and stuff like that. And I will suggest that you get your SOP verified by at least like 5 or 6 people in
Mm-hmm.
different things who are doing like completely different things, so that they
Mm-hmm.
will give you like a more generalized opinion of things. Because like, I mean, what is really important for you is like it's not just about like the science, but also the aesthetics of how you compose your SOP should be good,
Mm-hmm.
right? So just send it to like 5 or 6 different people, maybe who are not even related to your field, so that they can give you an unbiased opinion. Because once you write a technical SOP, even the faculties who are reviewing your application, they might not be aware with all the things, right? So
Mm-hmm.
someone working in like stem cell biology might not be aware of what happens in yeast, like very specific pathways in yeast. So do also send it to different people and see whether your wording makes sense. Is it like generalized enough so that any person can understand and stuff like that? So that's where I consulted like a lot of previous grad students in my internship labs, particularly at like Harvard and like Michigan State. And I did not actually consult a lot of faculties because I actually tried to. I actually tried to ask my previous like internship supervisor, and he was like, it would really not be fair if you discuss with me, because then it would not show the real you of
Yeah.
how raw your like thinking is and stuff like that. And that is what is really important in science. So that's why, but I did show my SOP to like some of my advisors back in IIT Kharagpur, who also graduated from the same department, came back as a faculty, and they reviewed like my like application, and like they gave me more scientific inputs which were really helpful. Love like, oh, you can mention this paper, they have also tried something similar, and like you can just say that, oh, they have done it in this way, I want to do it in this way. So yeah, but after I was selected, I was called for an in-person interview. It was like pre-COVID time, so we could
Mm-hmm.
fly, and like I came to the US for my in-person interview. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where I guess that was another like bottleneck, because I had to like go to like 4 different professors for interview. Like they were like from completely different fields, and
Mm-hmm.
there's where like they disclose some of the things what they liked about my application, what they thought was the thing that they needed to think more about before selecting me. And that's where I got to know like how like all these things come into play.
Okay, interesting. So as you mentioned about interviews, is interviews a common thing for PhDs in life sciences? And like, how
I
was your
mean,
overall interview experiences like?
right. So it's not super necessary. Like some of the university, if they have a lot of money, they'll just call you for interview. You will stay here for like 3-4 days.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess for some of the university, it is a really important thing, because you cannot be selected if you don't come for like the interview.
Mm-hmm.
So for some of them, it's like mandatory. And I know like some of my friends who appeared for interview like just online back from India, because of course there'll be like logistic hurdles and all those stuff. But it was a really great experience, because the whole point of interview here, at least for my program, was not to just judge me and select me like based on my ability. It was just to show me like what are all the things happened. It was like a 3-day like interview
Mm-hmm.
program. They took us to all beautiful places in
Mm-hmm.
Boston. They also like made us visit some of their like lab facilities and stuff, showing that this is what we do. And I
Mm-hmm.
had like interview with like 4 different professors, and like some of them were like really super big people.
Mm-hmm.
And I discussed things with them, and they were not trying to ask me like really like tough questions about how does this work and that work. They were just trying to explain me their research. I guess this is pretty much about like US interviews. They will
Mm-hmm.
not try to screw you. They will try to just tell that, oh, I'm working on this. And what is really important at that point, if you like, it's for the people who will get selected, is you also involve yourself into the conversation, because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise like the person will keep on saying stuff, and like it like the whole conversation will end like that. So you also like you also get into the conversation, ask them question, oh, you are doing it in this way, I had read about this paper. And even if you have not, if you're not familiar with what he's saying, just ask questions to understand, so that the other person knows that you are interested in this stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess these are some of the things that matter a lot. But I guess interviews are just like more a fun weekend in which they just call you and you just have
Okay.
fun. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So on that note of like speaking with professors, did you have to email any faculty member or any research group before applying, or would you suggest that that's a
Uh,
good thing to do?
I did not, but I will definitely suggest, because I suggested some of my juniors, and like I'm pretty sure it was helpful for them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very subjective thing, and some professors will take it very positively, some will maybe take it negatively, saying that, why are you applying to sending it to me? You just apply to the program and we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that's like the distribution of information that I got. So I guess it is really useful, because like what it really helps is like for small programs with like very specific programs, if you
Mm-hmm.
apply to the professor, then at least he can make a point during the application review that, oh, this person applied to me, maybe I'm interested in taking him or her. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like useful. Do give it a try. If you have time and it's not too stressful, and you don't need to like do spam mailing to like 100 people, just
Mm-hmm.
like find 5 or 6 labs and just mail it, and do not mail 2 different people in the same department or same lab at once. That's
Mm-hmm.
like obvious thing to think
Mm-hmm.
about. Yeah, but it's useful. Definitely go for it if you have time. At least now, like we have like Zoom and people can talk like to different people in different parts of the world, do give it a try. What people
Mhm.
mostly do, which is not very much possible in COVID times, is when they come for internship to the US, they go and visit different labs in and
Yeah.
around and they try to meet people. But now you can definitely schedule a Zoom call. And what I would definitely mention regarding this is when you apply to people, like when you mail professors, do write that one of the primary reason why you are applying to this program is because you are interested in that specific research group. It
Mhm.
just makes your importance higher in their like count, right? Otherwise
Mhm.
they'll be like, this person is just interested in to get into some other lab, why would I take like the responsibility? So
Mhm.
just say that I am applying for different programs and I found your research groups very much compelling, and that's why I think that like talking to you, like having this discussion with you will really help you in figuring out whether you should apply to this program or not. And it's really useful. I mean, just
Mhm.
make your wording in that way.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I don't know how much this applies for life sciences, but I guess it's a pretty multidisciplinary field. So it's a very common question that if I'm say if I did my undergrad in a field which is a bit different from exactly say I don't know say for genetic or say uh, chemical engineering or biological engineering, can I still apply to that field? Uh,
Absolutely, absolutely. I think like science in at least like in Harvard, I can say is very interdisciplinary.
mhm.
So I guess like if you are applying from a different, if you're applying from a different, if you're coming from a different field, it really increases your importance, particularly if it's relevant to like life science. If you are coming from like mechanical engineering, saying that I have no idea about like biology, but I would still like to learn, it just makes it a bit more unlikely. But if you have some background in like let's say biomaterials or like biomechanics, and you say that now I want to do this stuff in biology, I mean people would highly appreciate you
Mhm.
doing that, because that's an important skill, right? So if in all the labs that surround my lab, they work in completely interdisciplinary things. So
Mhm.
for them it is more important to have like people from different field than from life sciences. So
Mhm.
definitely, I mean, if you have some background, I mean, if this is directed to also people who are in their second or third year, if and you are interested in some life science specific being from a different background, do a like go for an internship or something, so that you at least have some background in like connecting your field to like biology, and then it will like definitely make your application more stronger.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So as long as you can like connect it or motivate why you are
Yeah.
applying, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
very likely that you will be
Yeah.
accepted.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right.
Mhm. Also, so along while you were preparing, did you come across any useful links or resources which were helpful for you?
I mean, there are like resources which are helpful, but they're also stressful. So I got to know about this thing known as Grad Cafe, in which you can
Hmm.
trace your
Yeah.
applications, and it's stressful. And like, I will not suggest people to just open it all through the day, but it's useful in the way that generally programs release their results quite soon. So you can like have a look through it and see like if your program has already released your result, then you should
Hmm.
not be waiting for it, right? You can apply to more university, you can take or you can start doing backup plans for applying to
Hmm.
maybe Europe or other places. So that's why
Hmm.
it's useful in that way. Otherwise, I know like for some of the programs in MIT and Harvard, so for my program I applied on like 2nd December, I guess, and they released the result on like 17th December. I was not even expecting it to
Hmm.
come that soon. And like for people, they were waiting till like January, saying that why the results are not out. Then I asked them to check like GradCaf, and it was out in December. So
Hmm.
I mean, they wasted some amount of time, right? I mean, they could
Hmm.
have applied to different programs. So in
Hmm.
that way, definitely, I mean, like go through GradCaf, it's really useful.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on that note of like stress, um, like the whole process of applying uh, takes a lot of energy, and the process of waiting plus facing rejections can also be very stressful. So what advice would you give on that? No?
I mean, what I will advise is like, see, this journey is like really difficult. I mean, of course, like if you're from a IIT, you know, like like that's the time when people sit for placement. Your friends will be getting placed, and you will be
Mm-hmm.
applying to different university at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
without having any certainty where you'll get in. But just one of the things to realize is like the other end is like really nice, because once you get into a PhD program, and particularly in the US, you have a lot of freedom to do whatever you want. I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
whatever research you want. It's definitely a stressful time, and I guess most of the stress is because people are sort of like a bit misguided. I mean, they start thinking a lot about maybe GRE scores. I mean, someone secured like 319, and that person will be, oh gosh, I'm not going to write my SOP because there's no point of applying. So just know that the things that really matter and does not matter. And what is like the background message here is you need to have a good story, and it does not matter, you can be like a six pointer, but if you have like a
Mhm.
strong compelling story, if you are like, if you convince like the people that okay, my CGPA was bad, but I have done these works and I have finished them in the timeline, this contributed to this field, then of course it becomes like important. I mean, of course, if you have like a six pointer but you also do not have any publication, you have not done an internship, then like you should not apply probably. But like if you have this trade-off that you spent a lot of time doing research, you missed exams, your CGPA dropped, then
Mhm.
of course like just try to make a good story and that's enough. I mean, no one is going to nitpick you based on your like GRE scores.
Mhm.
So don't worry. I mean, it's just about like stressing about the right things, right? I mean,
Mhm.
so stress about things like SOP, LOR, and like, because those are the only two things you have actually in your control towards like the last few months of applying. You cannot change your CGPA, right, in the
Mhm.
last semester. Neither
Yeah.
can you change your internships. So just focus on these things. And definitely, if you have anything that you think can be written down as a manuscript and at least submitted, go
Mhm.
for it.
Mhm.
I mean, that's also a thing.
Okay, thank you. So do you have any final word of advice, or can students contact you if they have any?
Absolutely. I mean, you can put my email ID. I can
Okay,
send
sure.
you my email ID and like
Mhm.
whenever you post this video. But I mean, the last suggestion that I would just give is like, I mean, what I would just like make a case for is like science is like really interesting.
Mhm.
And I, of course, know like many like anecdotes speak that, oh, it's so stressful in PhD students' life. There's like so much of depression and stuff like that. It
Mhm.
is there. I mean, I won't say it's not there, but it is also fun. And like, of course, in like every other thing, there's like, it's not like
Yeah.
you have to put some effort, right?
Mhm.
And what I want to say, if you are confused about the point about like industries and like academia or like company and academia, I mean, you can always go for like an industry after your academia. I mean, in
Mhm.
my lab that I work, people have worked in like hardcore, like East Evolution. They published it in Nature. Then they went to Wall Street for consultancy. So there are
Mhm.
people like that. You can always do whatever you want. And what I think about PhD applications, particularly in PhD, is once you get a PhD, it actually you can get to a better position in any company than you can get through like undergrad. So that is
Mhm.
also another thing. Suppose
Mhm.
you were being like a senior consultant, like a junior consultant in like BCG after getting graduated from, let's say, IIT Kharagpur or Kanpur. Then once you finish your PhD from a good university, you can get into like a better position there, because
Mhm.
then you would have gone through more stressful experience. And they, of course, like, I mean, they always count these things a lot, and that's why they
Mhm.
take a lot of like inter IIT people, right? Because they have gone through like a lot of stress.
Yeah.
So then these matters definitely. I mean, even after your PhD, you can always go for like a different career option, and I am pretty sure almost 50% of people around me are planning something like that. I mean, very
Mhm.
few people go to academia also because like the number of positions available is quite less.
Mhm.
So yeah, don't worry about that. It would be like a good journey. I mean, it's just the trade-off about like thinking too much about the future and thinking like too less. So there
Mhm.
is some optimum in between. So don't
Mhm.
make like very strong plans about things, and just like apply to things that you are interested in,
Mhm.
because you need to love what you are doing, right? I mean, that is
Mhm.
what is going to propel you through your whole journey.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is all, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Um, Another thing that I had, but probably not part of this, like was you say that you TA for some undergrad courses.
Yeah, yeah.
So how do you say is the whole undergrad course process, or the coursework, or whatever? It's different from, say, the IIT undergrad courses.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, what I would say is like, just I'll just need to charge my phone. Just
Yeah,
give
yeah,
me
of
a
course.
minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think like the undergrads here are like super talented, what I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you won't believe like some of the undergrads have already publications before they came to like Harvard.
Okay.
And I taught like a course that is integrated life sciences, and there were at least like 4 or 5 people who had like 4 or 5 publications before coming here. So
Okay.
I don't know where the level of competition is going, but I'm pretty sure they are like super talented here, and they do like great stuff. And also the course level here is like quite high. I mean, so I taught this course known as like integrated life sciences,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to teach them like dynamical systems, like hardcore probability statistics and stuff like that. And it's just their freshman year,
Mm-hmm.
and they were taught about all these things. And the good part about that is they are actually, even if they are not able to solve problems and stuff like that, they are at least exposed to different parts of science.
Mm-hmm.
So that really becomes useful. In India, I guess it's more systematic, that we are slowly taught about like basic prop stats and advanced prop stats and then stochastic process and stuff like that. But it just takes a lot of time. And now because science is like fast paced, it's just better if you just expose people to different things and then let them
Mhm.
figure out how to really use them. And I guess another thing is here there is like a different culture. So in India, if you remember at like IIT Kanpur also, we
Mhm.
were given assignments and we used to
Yeah.
definitely solve it with our friends, but like it
Mhm.
was like on our part, right? So here it's like most the duty of like the professor and like TFs like me to make sure that we make all the students sit in the same room and they solve the assignments together, so
Okay.
that each of them have different expertise. They bring all of them together and their like assignments are more applied. I mean, we will just give them some question on like COVID-19 and stuff like that, how to do this. They have to, some of them have to program, some of them have to think more biologically, some
Mhm.
of them have to think about how to write it down, how to present it. And that's where it becomes like really more you get like more community feeling there, and that
Mhm.
really helps. And that is, I guess, is like a very different thing between like India and undergrad here. But they are super interesting people. I mean, there are all sorts of people interested in like all sorts of things. Some of them have done like photography for like National Geographic and stuff like that, and they're
Mhm.
pursuing science here. I mean, it's like a super interesting crew of people,
Mhm.
I would say.
Okay. Yeah, that's very nice to know. Anyways,
Yeah.
thanks a lot for your time again. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely appreciate your initiative. I think it is really really important for students to actually know like what are these things, because I
Mhm.
guess the ultimate thing that we all want to do is to do good science. But I
Mhm.
guess it's not that straightforward, because before doing that we need to get
Yeah.
into a place where you can do it, and that is the process where we need to be strategic about things. And I also, while I was also applying for my grad school, I did not have like really good sources which would say me all these things. And I'm pretty sure, I mean, this initiative would be like really successful, like
Mhm.
taking students in the right path.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I'm sure your
Yeah,
whatever you had to say would also help a lot of students.
yeah, yeah, sure, sure.
Anyways, thank you for your time.
Thank you
Bye.
so much. Bye.